Hey, Bob here, and welcome to episode 11 of the BOBCAST. Just like the pack and the survey coming out this month, everything this May kind of revolves around the 1-year celebration of this Patreon community. And in that spirit, this episode is a little bit different. It's me talking with D&D YouTuber friend Matthew Perkins about what we do, because the first podcast episode on both of our Patreons was our conversation about orcs about a year ago. And to bring things back to this natural conclusion, we decided to have this conversation initially about D&D, but really ended up just being about YouTube, some of the excitement and the struggles of running this channel, running this Patreon, and keeping it all going for a year now. The format of this podcast may be changing up in the next year. I'm hoping to continue recording it with my fiancée Grace, of course, but also occasionally have more guests and to have some segments where we answer questions, particularly from patrons, maybe from other viewers on YouTube as well. But for now, I hope you enjoy this episode, looking back on the year, and as always, thank you for your support that makes all of this possible. Here we go.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Perkins Patreon podcast, lovingly known as the P-Pod. I'm joined today by Bob Worldbuilder. How you going, Bob?
I'm great. Hey everybody.
Hey Bob, just before we kick off, can you do me a favor and let everybody know where they can find you on the internet? What's your Twitter? Do you Twitter? What's your channel URL? Where can they find
I'm
you?
the same thing everywhere. That's just Bob Worldbuilder, easily found on YouTube. With that, no longer will search results give you Bob the Builder. It does know me now. But I'm also on Twitter at the same thing, at Bob Worldbuilder. And, business inquiries, Gmail, Bob Worldbuilder at there too. But that's pretty much it.
That's fun. I used to have a, you name check yourself every now and then throughout your life.
Yeah.
And I used to name check Matthew Perkins when I was trying to write a songwriting blog 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And this guy would come up like this singing preacher in the US, and he was doing these real soft Bible songs that I didn't enjoy.
So even Matthew Perkins music would just be that guy.
He was just beating me everywhere. And there was even a dentist that was above me. I was like, who's this dentist? What's he got going on? But now, I checked a couple of weeks ago, they're gone, baby.
Whoa.
They're gone. They're gone and forgotten. I win.
Wow. That's really impressive.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I should, I never have gone really by my own name, Bob Mason, which I like to believe Mason ties into builder a little bit. But anyway.
Hey, we doxed him, everybody. We got him.
And because when I've tried to search my name in the past, it's just a bunch of guys that aren't me. Very common name.
That's how names work. Most names are just a bunch of guys that aren't me. So we're doing a podcast. This is about Dungeons and Dragons. You wouldn't believe it. But the reason I've specifically asked Bob to come on is because Bob was the first guest to come on this podcast. We talked about #orcs. We were both pretty nervous. I did a bad job at editing the whole thing, but super grateful that he came on.
We survived, though.
We did survive. And the reason I'm getting you to come back now is because this is the final episode of this incarnation of the P-Pod.
Wow.
Right? Because at the moment, this podcast has just been me loosely talking to other YouTube creators just about whatever. What's this podcast? I don't know. I don't know what it's about. And I realize that that's kind of a problem. So I wanted to do one last what is this podcast about episode with you to kind of capstone it. And then when it returns, when it comes back in its next incarnation, it'll be a focused thing with maybe a purpose, maybe. But I'm just happy that you're going to be here to see the end of days with me, Bob.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be back because as we've talked about in preparing for, I so loosely use the word preparing. I guess just scheduling this, I should say. We were saying that it's been almost that long since we've really chatted. So it's really nice to hear your voice again from across the world.
Do you know what's really fun is you and I were chatting when we were setting up our Patreons.
Yeah.
We were comparing notes and stealing ideas from other successful people. Hello, the dungeon coach. We robbed you, my dude. In our initial setup, and we both launched pretty much on the same day. And then yours just went just through the roof like a freight train heading into space.
Something like that, yeah.
Just compared to mine. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I credit it all to doing actually really Rhyme of the Frost Maiden and pretty much losing my actual job for a little while because it allowed me to focus all efforts on this because that's why I was like, okay, I need to buckle down and make a Patreon now. Hashtag COVID-19.
How about hashtag COVID-19? When you lost your job, how much time were you putting into your YouTube stuff? Were you doing, 40-hour weeks in the office?
I probably was. Unlike some more logistically minded people who we've chatted about this kind of stuff with, like Anto, who like tracked his work time. I don't know if he still does that so much. I never really put a lot of effort into keeping track of my hours. I know my general thing at the time was probably 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Because I now, when I'm back to my full-time job, thankfully, and still doing YouTube and and Patreon and everything, it definitely feels like a bit too much. Like I feel like I'm always kind of like, if I had a social life, I wouldn't be able to do this.
I lost my job. So in September, I was working in a publishing company that was specifically focused on hospitality. And of course, hospitality shut down, for a very long time. Government support kind of ran out and they let my contract run its course.
Wow.
But since then, I started doing university. I'm doing a diploma of graphic design. And doing that on top of YouTube, I am working on something literally every waking hour. I am either writing or editing or recording or like doing social media stuff or studying. Like I reckon I'm doing 60-hour weeks. The only time I take off each week is like cooking dinner, cleaning the house, and like watching a movie with my wife.
That's really what it feels like. Every once in a while, anyway. It's like recently I've been trying to do, even if they're really short, including the actual like new shorts available on YouTube. I've been trying to do 2 videos a week where I just have like something little on Saturdays, and that is pretty much like definitely having me at my limit. Because I definitely had crossed the limit at some point, like a little while back, and realized like, okay, I need to dial things back. So maybe keeping track of those hours is a thing we should all do. But I've just learned to run into my limits head first and then realize like, oh crap.
How did you feel? Like, what did you recognize in yourself when you'd like crossed that limit of, oh, I'm doing too much?
Definitely just like actual stress, if that's like a weird way to put it, because I a lot of my viewers recognize this, that I am a very laid back person.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I realize that like, okay, I'm not getting enough sleep, or if like I can just tell when my attitude is off, then I'm like, okay, I need to fix some things.
Yeah.
And specifically like to get super real, because my job, when I got it back, is now very, very different from what it used to be. For maybe yourself / anybody listening here who doesn't know exactly what I was doing before, I was like basically an outdoor educator, working at a nonprofit. We do like character education too. It's all for middle schoolers. It's very positive, like awesome mission. But because schools have totally been changed up within the last year, our program, in order to stay alive in some way, basically changed to like, we are going to host students for an extended period of time, and basically just try to assist them with virtual learning, but specifically targeting like inner city kids who are coming from like really rough environments where they wouldn't be able basically to do their virtual learning online because they have like rough home lives and everything. And so just knowing this about like their backgrounds and everything, and honestly, like working with a lot of these students is just so much more challenging than what any of us were used to. And it's like longer days, just the way our whole like logistics of the organization had to change. So it was just a lot of like of that work on my plate. And then when I was trying to like maintain like a great momentum with YouTube stuff, it really became like too much too fast. And I totally hit a point where I was like burned out and realized like, okay, yeah, I just can't do this. So I ended up having to really adjust things where I'm now basically only doing YouTube stuff like on the weekends, besides like little social media things here and there during the week.
That sounds like a great balance. And some people don't even recognize, some people don't have the introspective skills to recognize when they're not having a good time with something. And you know what they do, Bob? they just die. they just die.
I mean, they die or they stop. Yeah. I mean, I honestly, that's the thing. I feel like if not for like Anto's group that we're a part of, I probably would have just like quit at some point with the YouTube stuff, because it's like all the business things that I really have no interest in, but are a very important part of actually being successful at this. Like every time I have to basically like make a phone call that's like some weird tax thing, or like research some, just very businessy businessman thing that I don't want to do. Yeah. I'm just like, is any of this really worth it? And then I have to like kind of lean on the group a little bit and see like, okay, who's done this? All right. Yeah, I guess I can figure this out too. And so far it's worked every time.
I know I said we were going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. I don't want to talk about D&D anymore. Let's talk about YouTube, because I never get to talk about this with anybody. This is so fun. Okay. Do you ever get jealous? Because one thing that YouTube gives, by jealous I mean envious, because YouTube gives you complete analytics. It gives you a complete measure of your worth as a YouTube channel.
Oof, yeah.
And it lets you track your progress, right? There are also tools that give you ways to compare that directly and like overlay two graphs between two different YouTubers. Like if I visit your page, it says, oh, you got 600 subscribers this month. I only got 500. Oh no. Yeah. Like, do you ever get stuck comparing stuff?
All the time. Yeah. It's like still a thing. And I feel like I've been good about it lately, but I know it's only because my channel has actually been performing like pretty well.
Yeah.
And I know that if I were to be putting even less time into it, or I don't really know, because it's not like there's a secret to any of this. Like a lot of it for me is like having recurring viewers from the Dragon of Ice Pyre Peak series, from Rime of the Frost Maiden. So that's like a strong backbone of my channel. And then, I'm trying to branch out more and really eventually kind of veer away from modules after Lost Mine of Phandelver, which, I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit.
Ooh.
But yeah. So when I'm comparing myself to people lately, it's like I'm seeing like, oh, I'm actually doing like pretty good right now, but it's still like that A/B comparison of like, I only feel that because of whatever channel I'm looking at. And I know like if I just start comparing myself to bigger channels, that it would be the exact opposite feeling. So yeah.
Do you know what gets me? It's not comparing myself to bigger channels. That does get me. I'm like, no, I want 10,000 subscribers. Well, I wish 10,000 people were watching my things. But when I would look at smaller channels and I just see them skyrocketing towards me, I'm like, he's a coming. He's a coming for me. Like I look at No Nat Ones and I'm like,
oh
he's
my
coming.
gosh.
Or I look at
what is up
No
with
Fun
No Nat?
Allowed. I'm like, what are you? Oh, here they come.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny too, because I remember feeling the same thing about like Dungeon Coach too at the beginning.
Yeah.
But it's like, but really like with Coach, with No Nat, like I know that those guys are putting in a lot more time than me. And honestly, I feel like that's just like part of it. And I don't know where, I don't think Dungeon Coach sleeps, first of all.
No, no, he is a beast.
I think he has a 4-hour trance state and then just another 4 hours of light activity.
I think that every time he releases a video, his maximum hit points decreases. And one day he will become undead.
Yeah.
So I remember doing a video with Dungeon Coach. He messaged me out of the blue. Hey man, big fan of your work. I'm really up and coming, and I want to collaborate with you. I'm like, okay, yeah, he's got 1,000 subscribers. I'll work with this young man. What a promising young individual. Okay, and then it took us 3 months to get the collaboration out. And by the time he released it, he was ahead of me. I'm like, oh well.
Well, that worked out well for you then, of course.
Yeah, for me, yeah. Well, thank you, Dungeon Coach, for having me on your channel. But the thing is, I don't know if they're necessarily, because I'm spending all my time on this crap.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone's spending more time than I am necessarily, but I think they are spending more effective time, because you can actively measure your output in how many minutes of content you're uploading.
You're so right. Yeah.
I'm only doing a video every 2 weeks, right? And I'm doing these daily shorts, but even that's a bit of an experiment. So I need to I think they're doing 2 videos a week, Dungeon Coach maybe. You're doing 2 videos a week, which is phenomenal to me. How short is your short video, and how short is your regular video if you're doing 2 a week?
My regular videos used to be more around like 12 minutes, and I feel like that's just kind of a sweet spot that YouTube really likes. So I I want to kind of stick around that, but my regular videos more lately have been kind of right around the 8-minute mark. And that's not too intentional. Like savvy viewers might know that 8 minutes is like the time for for allowing a video to be monetized. But I'm not like shooting for that or something. And my short videos are, I'd say, just more like around 5 or less. But I just did my first actual #short, whatever, YouTube video. And in this sense, because you're just talking about workflow and effective time, Anto, first of all, who is mostly robot. It used to be that he must have been part bionic, but now I think the machine has taken over because he's it seems like whatever. But even your comment in our Discord recently, you filmed like a ton of those shorts and edited them and like blah blah blah. Where literally last night I made one short and it came out today. So as of time filming this, whatever, and it took me like 3 hours to make this one thing. Partially that was because I was like researching shorts during the process and doing some extra research on the actual topic. So it was all like wrapped in there. But it was like, if I'm going to do shorts, like I kind of need to do it as a lot of people are, which is just like turn the camera on, say something real quick, even if I plan it ahead of time, because this ended up being like a pretty heavily edited minute of content. And I definitely couldn't sustain that for shorts.
I saw your short. I'm glad you mentioned this because I wanted to mention to you, hey, that short's too good. Like you're trying too hard. Like you're doing like transitions and you got graphics and it's changing scene. Like you did a video for a short. A short shouldn't be a video.
Yeah.
So what I posted in our little RPG tubers community was that it takes me about 8 to 10 hours probably to do a month worth of shorts. So 30 of them, including the thumbnails, uploading, scheduling, filming, editing.
Wow.
And the reason that it takes that long is because what I did is I spent maybe 5 hours making a template that I was happy with. And then literally all I do is I sit down and I record the audio for an hour or so of me just talking about the spells one by one until I get a 30-second clip that I'm happy with for each. And then I just swap out the assets in the video. Like I literally right-click, replace footage with this screenshot that I've taken from D&D Beyond. And all the automation of it scrolling through is already there. It just applies it to a different image now. It's really handy, I think. But the thing is, I don't know how useful shorts are going to be. Like, do shorts decrease the value of your regular videos? I mean, Anto was saying today that scared the hell out of me. It scared me so much.
Yeah.
He said he's releasing a short every second day, and one of them fell on the same day as one of his regular videos, and he thinks his regular video tanked because of the short.
Yeah, I saw that too. And honestly, I was kind of
I don't like that.
Because you said, are you doing daily as well?
I'm doing daily, baby.
Yeah. And how's it going so far?
I would say positive, but the thing is I can't measure, well, how many views did I not get on my other video because of the shorts? I can't see that.
That's a good point. Yeah. I guess like in my mind, it was like seeing the daily or even like frequent enough content from Anto in my feed. I was like, if I'm just like scrolling through YouTube and because, these are like batch created things, like if the thumbnail is similar enough, I might be like, oh, did I already see that? And just kind of like go by it. Whereas like for me, shorts, like when this came about, I had already had this like little series in mind that, my first short here could be the first installment of if I choose to continue it. Cause again, I only made one of them. I was like, had it in mind as being like a weekly thing. Like it would be like my little Saturday shorts or something. And like, it's just like one little minute to pump out one video, one extra video a week. But like I said, I'm going to have to figure out a quicker way to make those if I continue it. But yeah, because I feel like the daily thing could, I don't know. I guess I don't know. Like you'll have to poll your actual community and just see like, hey, are you guys liking these shorts?
Some of them listening, someone's probably listening and like raging and being like, I hate shorts. Oh, these bloody short videos. Where's the rest of it? Where's the rest of the video? Because some people have commented and say like, hey, I don't like shorts, but I understand you're doing this for the algorithm and I support you. You deserve more subscribers. I'm like, that's so good that people are willing to take like a hit to support me. The hit is consuming my shorts. But there is one kind of thing that I find really interesting about the shorts is that they are better in context of the whole suite of shorts. Like if I just released one of them, I was like, yeah, this is a fun little 30-second clip. But now that I've got like 30 of them uploaded and I can see the private playlist, if I just click play and it goes through them, it is actually super duper engaging to sit down and go like, spell review, spell review, spell review, spell review.
Yeah. I mean, in that sense, like, I mean, I like it. And I think it is probably better. I don't know. Maybe because I'm literally saying this off the top of my head. I have not thought about this before. Is it better than creating one video where you just talked about a bunch of spells for a minute each or whatever, 30 seconds each? Because obviously any given video, the average is like people watch, 50% of it or something. So if you had some cool spells at the end, like you're really going to have to like plug them up front, or I don't know. Because I feel like when I do like a video, like I never really want to make a video that's going to be like a part 1 and a part 2.
You mean either?
Because I know the part 2 is going to have so many fewer people watching it. And I'd rather cram it into one video.
I don't watch part 2s.
Yeah. Dang it, Matt. I mean, it depends on what it is, of course, I guess. But I'd rather just create either twist whatever my part 2 would be into like a fresher topic that's worth its second video, or just make the first video a little bit longer and kind of abridge whatever I would have had that would have been in a part 2.
But the thing that you and I are both wrong about, we're both wrong about the fact that we think it matters what we put out. Because what is important is just putting out something.
Yeah.
And that's what at least shorts do. They are there. You can't say that they're not. Hey, you said something earlier that I want to swing back onto. You said that after you do your Lost Minds of Fandelver series, that I don't think you've started putting out yet. You probably haven't even gotten the shape of it in your head yet, the series.
Yeah.
You wanted to switch to other content. What do you want to change to? Like, I thought the guides would be your jam. They're my jam. I thought they're our jam.
You know what, Matt? I've secretly been planning this project. I'm just kidding. It's not a secret. I want to do world building.
Okay.
I want to world build on my channel. And
it's in the name, right? There,
yeah, that was the idea. That was the idea when I started this, because in the beginning, like literally when planning my first few videos, I was like, okay, I'm going to make a handful of videos here about how to play D&D. And I'm going to make a lot of videos about D&D, I'm sure. But it's going to be all in the context of world building. So that way I can have like this bigger audience that's not just D&D people. It'll be people who like, fantasy and people who like writing or whatever. But that totally did not happen because, a few months into making videos, it's like, oh, here's this cool new box set coming out from D&D. This looks neat. Whoa, you all like this stuff? Okay, here's more of it. Yeah. Whoa, you want more? More? Okay. And then that's been my channel for a while.
That's how you end up with an OnlyFans. OnlyFans when? Well, okay, here's a question, and this might seem like a silly question. What does a world building video look like? Like, what's the topic of world building?
Yeah. I mean, right now I just have a vague framework of a series in mind.
Okay.
That begins with just like creation stories for different like real world cultures. But then like, okay, how can we, mine some of these for something interesting for your world? Because part of, any good creativity that I'm sure you're well aware of, being creative in many facets of your life with music and videos and all kinds of stuff. Your graphic design is like a lot of it.
Oh, wow. I love this.
A lot of it is just, trying to study some great stuff that's already out there. So I really want to kick off, whatever this series will be with some kind of like just like real world myth, Yeah. And maybe pulling from some like fictional universes as well, but mostly just from real world cultures and like the stories that, have been around for thousands of years because they're that good. And like, how can we create a world based on, this little seed of a story that, to be honest, is going to be that background stuff that the players never care about. But like you as a DM making this world, you're like, yeah, like my gods did this way because of this other thing. And it just feels really satisfying.
Yeah.
So starting with creation, but then literally going into some specific like actual like, okay, here's what our geography can look like, trying to pull on some of my environmental science knowledge and that stuff. But keep it very.
You've been outside. You know what it looks like.
Yeah, but keep it fun and eventually just kind of get into smaller and smaller details. So it's literally starting from like creation to the world and like, it's biology and geography and geology and whatever. But then going into, of course, like, okay, and here's where like a city might be. And then, okay, what's that city like? Or, and what, how do you make a town? And then, maybe all the way down to very like specific cultural things. Like when I first made my channel, I made a Reddit post very early on that was like, what are some cool world building topics you'd like to see from a D&D channel? And I got all these great ideas. It was just about like, what would a fantasy wedding be like? What about a funeral? What about like, how do they celebrate birthdays? I don't know. Those are just some things off the top of my head, like a school system.
That's really fun.
Like there are just like random things like sports, like athletic, games, like these things that these people were kind of giving me ideas for. I was like, wow, like I've never thought about a lot of this for my own world. I'd love to make videos about this stuff.
That is really cool.
And now 2 years later, I made videos about none of it, but eventually I'm going to get there.
Yeah. I don't accomplish my goals either. What you said about like touching on myth specifically, like that's what Dale Kingsmill does.
She does.
People like that. And I think even I saw one of Zipper on Disney's videos like a year and a half ago, and he was talking about the Civil War at the start of it, right? Or maybe it was ancient Greece, I can't remember. But he was really knowledgeable just about this real world conflict, and he just started talking about that. And I was just super into that. And when he started talking about the D&D stuff, I was like, I don't care. I wanted to hear about the real world stuff. But there is crossover between people that like D&D and people that like history, and they don't need to like both to enjoy your video on this kind of topic, because
absolutely
you got one hobby. Here's a hobby, right? Dungeons and Dragons. We sit around with our friends, we play D&D. That is a hobby. A separate hobby to that would be, I'm really into miniatures. It's tangential.
Yeah.
But I love painting and stuff like that. I don't like painting. This is a hypothetical character. Someone who likes painting might say, I like painting. By the same token, I can imagine Dungeon Master saying, I love world building. I see that as like a tangential kind of hobby, or like a parallel hobby.
Yeah, it really is kind of a side thing, because you definitely don't need to do that at all to love D&D and get a lot out of D&D.
I'm excited for you. I'm also excited that you're going to stop doing guides, because then like we're not competing anymore. Then I can have all the guides, Bob.
Yeah. I mean, and stop is such a specific word, because it's like, here's the deal.
Oh, sorry.
Dragon of Icespire Peak took like a year, and that's just a little starter set, right? So for Icewind Dale,
yeah,
I'm honestly kind of trying to figure out ways to wind it down. And still come to a satisfying conclusion. But to basically do the end, do every chapter that isn't chapter 1, because that's literally all I've done so far. All the towns, everything is all chapter 1
Really?
and before. Yeah. So there are still like 5 chapters in this book, and I'm probably going to do like 1 to 3 videos for each whole chapter, just because otherwise it's getting into parts of the book that, so few people are even ever going to play or like want to watch a video about. And so the thing is, like we've talked about before with making guides, it's like you're hitting, okay, there's all the people in the world. And then there's like a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of people who like D&D. And then there's a tiny fraction of those people who are dungeon masters. And then there's a tiny fraction of those people who are dungeon masters playing the module you wanted to make videos about. So, and then there's even
half of those people have YouTube channels.
Yeah. I think you're right, because then even, smaller than that are the dungeon masters playing that module who will finish the module.
Yeah.
So to make videos for a whole campaign book like this, of this size too, like Frostmaid is just too big.
Are you sick of Frostmaiden? Are you sick of like the adventure?
I'm not sick of it, but I'm ready to really make it my own to keep it really interesting. And that's kind of how it's been for my group anyway. Like we didn't really stick to too much of what the beginning chapter had to offer. But I'm really going to be twisting a lot of it to just be more about my characters, because that's what it should be. And I was about to say, I recently made a video just about, it was just called like pros and cons of big D&D books. And a lot of people were like resonating with this, because obviously I have a lot of people watching my channel who are also like knee deep in Frostmaiden right now and are probably feeling the same thing I'm feeling, that like, yeah, it's just kind of like, I'd rather just be doing a little bit more of my own thing.
That's a very fair point to be at. That's a fair conclusion to reach. Can I pitch you on my method of doing guides? Because maybe it'll help you save some time and feel better about this kind of the weight of the adventure.
I've watched your whole Lost Mine series, so I'm interested to see. Oh yeah, totally.
Oh, thanks.
Interested to see and it's amazing. Let me just say that right now, because like I do feel like of course I put a lot of time into my guides and get all these nice comments from people saying how cool they are. But like yours are just like really entertaining, where I feel like mine are just very educational.
Oh, thanks, Bob.
Like I feel like, I don't know. I mean, yours do both, of course. I think we both do both, but I do feel like yours are more fun to watch. Mine is just kind of like a slideshow sometimes. But anyway, you were about to speak.
Separate to what I was going to say, my general aesthetic is always, I want to make a D&D video that if you don't know anything about D&D, if you accidentally click this video, it's still going to be entertaining.
Yeah.
So that's like my goal. And sometimes if it means that you like D&D and you're entertained, that's a bonus. So, but my shape for video guides for modules is specifically to break it down session by session. So I say, look, in your first session, you're probably going to be here. And this whole video is you can watch this whole video and it will carry you through that session. Here are the encounters you're probably going to have. Here are the NPCs that are in this one session. Here are the resources and handouts that you might need for this session. So for example, I've got Storm King's Thunder coming up, which I have read twice.
Whoa.
I'm in the process of writing. It's going to be like 35,000 words.
That's a long book too, right? Isn't that?
It's a big boy.
Isn't that one like over, I don't know, whatever, go on.
It's going to be big. So I'm saying if you were to run all the content that I'm suggesting is, worth running in here, you could do it in 15 sessions. So I'm saying I'm going to make 15 to 16 videos in each one is a session. But in order to finish the campaign, if you only stick to the actual pertinent content, it might be 11 sessions. So that's kind of that actually helps me compartmentalize what the videos are about as well. Because if I was just making a whole video about a single location, I couldn't do it.
You're saying you could play through Storm King's Thunder in like 11 to 15 sessions?
Yes.
Wow.
I think you absolutely could. That's my style.
Yeah. I mean, granted, I have not read it, but off the top of my head, I'm assuming it's one of these modules that ends around like level 13, right?
It finishes at level 11. When I play D&D, we go up a level every session pretty much.
Wow. See, I like low-level play way too much to do that.
Well, I do low-level play as well. I just do short campaigns. Like I will start my campaign and say, all right, guys, this campaign is going to go for 6 sessions. No, after 6 sessions, no matter what, this campaign will be over. So set your expectations.
That's really good. That's a great way to frame a campaign. Yeah.
And that makes the party and the players complicit in hitting that deadline. They say stuff around a lot less because they go, oh, we're going to finish this. We're going to hit the finale. And they know what a finale looks like. They know the feel of a finale. And they add all their little chips to the pile. They stack the Jenga blocks higher with me to build the drama so that we can all knock it all down in that finale.
Yeah, that's really awesome that you have that like foresight basically. Because I do feel like my perspective, maybe it's because I started D&D like being a very homebrew thing and like very by the seat of our pants. Not as a DM, like I was playing first, but even when I first DM'd, I don't know, all my planning was just about like the fun that I was having world building, which I then realized, isn't a great use of a DM's time. So what you're doing is like way more efficient for a DM to run their campaign out of a book or otherwise, I feel like.
I do want to clarify one thing though. even though I don't enjoy world building particularly much, and I don't think it's necessarily helpful for real time play at the table, I don't mean to disparage it at all as a hobby, and I think it's totally fine that a lot of people enjoy doing it. There are a bunch of world builders on my Discord, and hey, I love them all.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, I mean, it's just something I want to get back into because I really was focusing so heavily on these campaigns. And of course, as we talked about before, like the busyness of maintaining a channel and Patreon and all this and that, like world building isn't really a thing I've done now in a while. I'll like homebrew some little rules every now and then or something, but haven't taken the time to really design anything that's purely original unless it was for Patreon. So in a way, like I've really enjoyed my Patreon for that because I don't know if this is a plug now or something, but every month I make a little like pack that has like an NPC and it's some kind of encounter or like little set piece location or adventure. And that has kind of been an outlet basically for world building, which is really nice.
Wait, do you do something every month?
Yes.
For Patreon?
Yeah.
I do something every week and it's killing me.
I originally wanted to do like an NPC every week, but I do one of these packs every month. I do a podcast every month. And, there's the guides for Frost Maiden going up there just kind of intermittently, like when I make the videos. And there's other things that are now like slipping my mind because here's like something funny. We talked about like setting up Patreon and talking to these other people a little while ago after I did a recent like Patreon update. That was really just making a new video for it and like a few tweaks to how I had structured things. Dungeon Coach privately messaged me on Discord and said like, that's too much, Bob. You need to scale your things out a little bit differently. And I was like, you're probably right. But this is just how I have it in mind for now, and things will change in the future. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm doing. But I have like very few tiers, and that's really what he was commenting on. It's like it just needs to be spread over more tiers. If you've seen I know you're familiar probably with his Patreon. He's like probably 10 tiers. It's like there's just a lot going on there. I don't know how he keeps track of all of it.
Yeah, I've got 10 tiers, except my trick is I don't have anybody on anything except the first 3.
Yeah.
So do I really have 10 tiers? Who knows? Yeah, that's really fair enough. I think the only reason that I like having weekly content is that if I can tie a resource or a handout or something specific to the video that I'm making that week. Like if I'm making a video about this session of Storm King Thunder, I can say, here are the handouts on Patreon. That's intrinsic value. And I think that's actually really worthwhile because, I know that this is going out to my patrons and I shouldn't be sharing these secrets, but some of the things that I've released on Patreon just aren't really necessarily worth it. And that's why I want to do a shakeup. Like, I want to look at the style of the things that I'm putting up there. I want to look up the content of the things that I'm putting up there. That's why I'm looking at the content of this podcast and saying, well, how can I get something unique and fun out of this that has a structure that's worthwhile listening to? Because at the moment, what you've just listened to is me and Bob be best friends for half an hour, which is great because that's good for me. It's good for my soul. It's good for your soul. But there's more juice out there, and that's what we do on my channel. We drill for juice.
Oh man, that's a good tagline.
It is, but it's a little bit anti-environment. I don't know if I want to do it.
I don't know what it's anti or what it's pro. I feel like you can take that so many ways. But juice is the good stuff. Everybody knows that. No matter what it is, the juice is good.
Do you actually drink juice? I don't drink juice.
No, I don't really drink juice either. Maybe I'm. Screw the juice. Yeah.
Screw the juice. Hey, okay, let's wrap up in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Because we've been having a really good chat. I'm having a lot of fun.
Well, and I wanted to ask you, because I feel like, we're kind of getting back to our Patreon talk, getting back to the purpose of this, whatever this was, nonsense discussion about you changing up your Patreon. So I wanted to ask, how, do you have these grand plans yet? Or do you know how you're gonna start ticking away to create this plan?
Look, I'm not the kind of person that makes plans. What I do is I constantly do things. I'm always doing something, and I just don't let myself get stopped. And when I stop and go, how am I going to do this? How am I going to work it out? I go, no, that's not productive. Just do something. So the only general shape I have of it is that I want to give people more value for signing up. Whenever someone leaves Patreon, I get a little notification and they go, this person is unsubscribed, and they're prompted to give a reason, right?
Oof.
Sometimes they type in their own reasons. Sometimes they select from a list of pre-selected reasons. And there is a general theme of why people are leaving.
Yeah. Wow.
It's either the content isn't high quality enough, which I thought was a fair criticism. There's somebody signed up for a specific resource and they got it and then they want to leave. That's totally fair enough. And then the other one is their financial situation changed, which is totally fair enough. So I want to address as many things in those exit surveys as I can by increasing the quality, making it more relevant to the videos, making it clearer so you can find exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Because it's like there's 60 things up there. If you're looking for one specific thing, how are you going to find it?
Honestly, I do feel like finding things on Patreon is like an issue. I've actually created, feel free to do this as well. I don't know how useful it still is to my patrons because I probably need to do it again so it's higher in the feed. But a while ago, I just called it an index post where I just linked to everything else on my Patreon, and I now update that post. Every time I basically add a new thing. But granted, if you're doing weekly things, you probably have a lot of stuff. So I don't know. That could be useful.
One way I thought of dealing with it, because I also want to deal with the fact that people can't find what they're looking for, and that people are signing up for a specific resource and then bailing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking of doing a thing where so at the moment, everything's on a $5 tier. You sign up for $5, you get pretty much everything, and you get bonus stuff at higher tiers.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of saying, if you want the historical archive of everything, like if you've just started Lost Mines and you're going to go back to that first session, the video that I did 6 months ago, and you want to get the resource from that video, maybe I'll put everything older than a month old on the historical $10 tier or something, right?
Yeah.
But if you want anything that's come out in the last month, then that's on a $5 tier. So if you keep subscribing on $5, then every month you're staying up to date and you're getting the resources you want. You save the stuff you want, you ignore the stuff you don't want. And that way, what I might also do is whenever I finish a big long module guide, I'll say, cool, I've been putting these out every week, these resources for this module. Now that we've finished it, I'm going to delete all of those and make a collated capstone post, right? And you can get everything for that module just from this single post.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. That's actually basically the model that I'm shifting toward. And that was my reply to Coach as well. Because right now it looks like there's so much at the early tiers because I'm creating all these one-page reference guides for, say, Frostmaiden based on my videos. But as I complete a section, I'm compiling them. Instead of just being a one-page PDF, then it's a 10 or whatever page PDF that's just only available at a higher tier. So I haven't thought about deleting them from the previous tiers or at what time interval I'd really do that yet. But yeah, I do think that's kind of a way that you have to go when you create so much content on Patreon because then someone who joins later in the game, so to speak, has all of this content compared to the people who have been loyal to you for really long, paying, month after month after month, and they get it little by little. I don't know. Something about that feels weird, right?
It's kind of tricky because it all comes down to why do people support people on Patreon?
Yeah.
I support maybe 8 or 9 different people, some D&D friends, some artists that I like, I think there's even a photographer that I follow. And I don't look at anything they post. I just go, look, I just wanted to give you a little bit of money. I just want to chip in and help you along the way. So sometimes it's more difficult for me to emphasize with people that are subscribing going no, I want this resource and I want that resource. I'm like, well, that's not how I approach Patreon. So I've got to shake myself out of my mindset and try and put myself into someone that's, no, I am chasing value.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit tricky sometimes to emphasize that way.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more of the chasing value side, to be honest. So that's why I kind of...
You should run my Patreon.
Yeah. Well, it's something else I'm going to recommend. Maybe you already had something like this in mind. But when I did probably my first kind of revamp of Patreon, I just surveyed everybody. I just made a quick little Google form survey, with basically like some general questions, but then the main chunk of it was just allowing people to rank just in terms of value. I think it was on like a scale of 5. It was like super valuable, valuable, neutral, not so valuable, trash or something. Like I had a funny name for the not at all valuable. And just let people rank every thing that was available on my Patreon, and then compiled all the scores basically for each thing. And we're like, okay, these things are really valuable to people, so I'm going to focus on these things. And I actually like cut a few things from what I was putting up there. Like I used to put up like just scripts from my videos because I saw that some other Patreon creator or like D&D people even were doing that.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably useful before I was creating PDF guides. So like for some of my Dragon of Ice Fire Peak videos, those scripts, I left them up there, but I don't think they're like very useful compared to guides. So I stopped doing that for other things.
Oh no, I'm planning to put a script out next week.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, poll your people and see what they really like.
That's totally fair enough.
Yeah, like how many?
We should wrap up.
Yeah, let's just wrap up.
Like, no, hit me with the question.
I was going to ask how many.
I don't want to stop you.
How many patrons do you have right now?
I have at the end of every month. I usually cross about 200 people, and then when the unsubscribes kind of all hit at once, it drops down to like 180, 175.
Okay.
And then over the course of the month, it'll build up again and then kind of deplete.
But that is totally.
What about you?
That is, yeah. I'm right around 200 as well right now.
Yeah.
And,
do you keep dipping under?
I feel like it's stayed above. Like I think I'm at like 220 or 230 right now.
Well, get a lot of Big Bob over here.
Right? Yeah.
Well, I could do.
But yeah, I mean, and so here's the thing though. I did my survey when I had maybe like 60 people, and then I started producing, like, I think that was right at the beginning of my Frost Maiden series. And when I was deciding like, okay, I'm going to start putting up all these guides, what else can I cut out? So I wanted to survey everybody to kind of, reassess like what I'm creating. And I surveyed probably 60 people at one, maybe 30 or 40 of them actually replied. But now I have over 200 people. So it's like the opinions are probably drastically different. I know that so many people are just joining for Rime of the Frost Maiden and that's it.
Okay.
Well, but here's the thing. I mean, maybe a lot of them just do want to support. I don't know. Again, we should wrap up. We should wrap up.
After the podcast, sometime this week, can you do me a favor and send me the poll that you did, or like you just maybe the things that you used for that poll? Because I'm absolutely going to do that. That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
So this has been the Perkins Patreon podcast, lovingly known as the Peapod. My name is Matthew Perkins. You can find my stuff over at matthewperkins.net. Bob, are you going to post this to your Patreon as well? Do you want it? You can have it.
I feel like let's assume yes.
Okay, let's assume yes. That's all right. Hey, but I'm going to get you to shout out your stuff as well. Where can people find you, Bob World Builder, on the internet, just for someone that might have forgotten from the beginning?
Literally just go to the internet and type Bob World Builder, and there I am.
Oh, hey, yeah, that's right. I remember now. I remember. It's way easier. Okay, well, thanks so much for hanging out, man.
It's been a pleasure.
For this last incarnation of this podcast. I wonder what it's going to look like later.
Are you still going to call it the Peapod? That's a good name.
Do you like that name or not? You like it?
I like it, yeah. I have a silly name for mine too.
Oh, what's yours called?
Mine's called the BOBCAST.
Oh, that's funny. I like that. That's really cool. Does it have like the symbol of like a bobcat holding a microphone, the BOBCAST?
Oh, crap. That's a great idea.
Is it? I think it's an awful idea. Okay, this is the end. So, this is the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your Patreon support. I hope you liked this very strange YouTube D&D Patreon-y conversation, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.